Good morning, Year 5. Today's English lesson is a skill lesson, and we are going to be thinking about formal language because, as we know and as we have learned, non-chronological reports need to be written in a formal tone. So let's first think about what formal is. So if we are writing formally, we need to be writing in full sentences with the correct grammar and vocabulary. And we also need to make sure that we are not using contractions. So for example, I wouldn't say should have, would have, could have. I would say should have, would have, could have. I wouldn't say can't or don't. I would say cannot, do not, and so on. Okay, so we try and avoid those. We try and not use idioms. So idioms are when we have a phrase where the words altogether mean something different than we normally mean. So for example, cat's got your tongue. We would say when somebody's not replying or when they're quite quiet, or maybe snug as a bug. That would maybe say somebody's really comfortable and like warm and cozy. Okay, so we try and avoid those when we are writing formally. We try and use the passive voice, so rather than saying I have completed the application form is completed. So we don't use our pronouns there. We don't give our own view, and we don't make it about ourselves. We use no phrasal verbs, so we don't say look into, we might say to investigate. So for example, in science, we might not say I'm going to look into how water temperature changes dissolving times. We would say to investigate how water changes dissolving times. Okay, so we don't use phrasal verbs. We don't use abbreviations, so that's when we shorten words. So for example, it has here as soon as possible, we wouldn't shorten to ASAP. Whereas this one, we might use appropriately in a non-chronological report. For example, if we're talking about where maybe an animal lives or somebody lives, we might shorten that down so that we don't have to write the full name each time. For example, each time we wouldn't want to write United States or America, so we might shorten it in brackets first as USA, and then throughout we can continue to use USA. We try and avoid the use of exclamation marks. Again, this one, if we can use them appropriately in our non-chronological report, we can use them, but we don't want to overuse them. And we don't want to use any imperative verbs, so we wouldn't say complete the form, we would say you may complete the form, but again, that one's not too appropriate for what we are writing in a non-chron, but that's what we would think about when writing formally. So formal and informal in writing. So formal writing is clear and to the point. It has a more serious tone. It has specific vocabulary for the subjects, and it uses more complex sentence structures. Informal writing may, but not in all cases, have a more chatty tone, so a bit like a conversation, like you're talking to your friend. They might use contractions and abbreviations, and they might use cliches, so for example, idioms, again, like raining cats and dogs, okay? And we would say that those aren't generally informal writing. So remember, the style in which you write is specific for your reason for writing and the audience. So for example, if you were writing something formal, like an essay for school or a report or an information text, that would be formal. We wouldn't want to have a chatty style in an important document. Informally, if we were writing in a diary or texting our friend or our mum or dad or whatever, we might speak informally. And then, depending on who we are sending it to, we might speak formal or informal. So depending on who we are sending a letter, an email, or a story to, it might be formal or informal. So for example, if I was sending an email to my friend, it would be probably informal. But if I was sending it to somebody that I'd never sent an email to before and I don't really know, I would write formally. Okay? So you have 4 tasks to complete today. So the first one is this. So you are going to tell me whether these forms of writing are formal or informal. So in your book, I want you to write a text message and then whatever it is, so formal or informal, and then the same for the others. So that is task 1. Then task 2, you've got a little, not a test, but it looks a bit like a test, but it's not. Underline the vocabulary that helps you decide which one is formal or informal, then you need to tick the correct box. You could write the sentence out and then write next to it if it's formal or informal. And then down here, we need to rewrite the sentences so that they are more formal. So tomorrow morning, class 6 are off to the museum to see the new stuff they've got in. Okay, so you need to make those into formal writing. Have a really good go. And then task 3, we are going to apply it to our lions for our non-cron. So I've written some informal sentences here. Oh, I've written this the wrong way around. I need to change them from informal to formal. So the boy lions mostly weigh, oh, that's not the right way. So you could have corrected that as well for me. They weigh about 30 stone. Little lions are looked after by the big lions. Lions have loads of hair around their face. That shows us they are the boss. Meat eaters, like lions, eat many different animals that are weaker than them. Lions walk around in groups, so they are safe. So you need to take those informal sentences and make them formal. And then finally, task 4 is to write your own formal sentences that you might even be able to use in your own draft.